Hello everyone, welcome to this video. For this video, I would like to share with you my experience of how I learned new trick in FPV Freestyle. And recently I noticed that I can learn new tricks faster with less crash, and this is why I want to share this perception to you. Firstly, I would like to introduce myself. Well, I fly FPV quadcopter for 3 years and never do any remote control hobby previously. It's just quadcopter for me. However, I can do some tricks that many guys see like it's very hard to do. Well, just like inverted orbit and inverted yaw spin, magic trick, some of magic tricks, and other stuff. And the more tricks I can do, I realize that I can do new trick faster with the less crash. Let's say like for learning inverted yaw spin, I spend months in order to do it, in order to able to do it at any time I want. But last new trick, I used just a day to become able to do it at any time I want. It's just so much different in time span and in effort in order to learn new tricks, so I want to share it. So the next point is I am an airline pilot, so the face or the way I explain may look more or less like a pilot saying. Well, anyway, my perception work well with any trick I do so far, but it may be right, it may be wrong. You can correct me if I am wrong, and all ideas are welcome. You can comment or complain. Okay. Well, the purpose of this so-called class is that to illustrate conceptual approach in learning new tricks, which result in faster learning successfully and less crash. And the phase that I divided the trick into phases, and these are the main phases that you can apply it to any trick. Some professional FPV pilot used to say that you should divide trick into many steps and work each step. So this is a step, sound step that you can apply to any trick. It is they are an entry phase, execute phase, and exit phase. Okay. Well, I would like to make a definition here so you don't confuse what is entry, what is execution, or what is exit. Well, the entry phase definition is an approach to a trick start from simply cruise or end of previous trick, or just turning, and end at initiation of the trick you want to do. Objective of the entry phase is to acquire acceptable attitude, speed, and momentum in order to transit it into execution phase smoothly with less workload. Okay, then next is execution phase. Definition is to do the trick mostly begin at an intentional point or other reference and end when the trick is completed at an intentional position or reference, maybe the same position. The objective is to perform the trick as close as an imaginary line as possible. The exit phase definition is finishing of a trick, may include transition into next flying move, and the objective is to complete a trick while maintain full control at all times and enter into another trick or move which will create streamlined flying flow. Sound great, right? Well, let's explain the concept with power loop as an example. Right, we have our quad right here, as you see the picture, and for the power loop is we want to fly through the gap here under the fence bar and do the power loop here and go through the same gap and then exit. Okay, so the phase is clearly distinguished by the color. The blue is entry, the green is execution, the exit is the yellow, and so-called this is the imaginary line. Well, this is how you want to fly. Well, let's start with the entry phase. For the entry phase, what you have to concern is the attitude, the speed, which will result in the right momentum you need. Well, the attitude for this example that you should be wing level, and the speed is the right speed, the right pitch degree, the right thrust, which will result in the desired momentum, which is not too much, not too less. Okay, either to do the trick. And a bad example is that if you enter with a bank quad, it's not wing level. If your quad is banking during this position, you will not go straight along the entry phase. You will turn to the right a little bit, and you have to correct it when you are closer to the gap. Okay, and if you are trying to correct it and you enter the gap with a bank quad, not wing level, you will start the power loop. You may complete it, but it may not be end with where you start. It may not end where you start. It may twist and end to the next gap next to where you start, like that. Okay, well, another bad example is if you come too fast, you pitch too much, you use too much thrust, you will have too much momentum, and this too much momentum will most likely resulted in when you're trying to do power loop, you initiate it too high, and it's not going to be a power loop anymore, because you come too high. You cannot pull your quad backward because you have too much momentum on entry. Okay. Next is the execution phase. For execution phase, the things that I concerned is that the timing and input, the reference point, the uncertain moment, the correction, and the abort. Well, this is the imaginary line that you want to execute. Well, let's say you come along the entry point perfectly and you surely can pass through the gap here, and you want to initiate the power loop right here. What is going on here is that at the start you have a clear visual reference, which is the fence bar. Whenever you are going to pass through the fence bar, that's the time you start the power loop. It's very clear. And in order to do the power loop, you have to pitch up, and you may maintain thrust or slightly increase the thrust at this position, because you already have momentum which you create on the entry. And then if you pitch up with the thrust stay the same, some part of the forward thrust will trade into the climb. It will bring a quad high a little bit, just pitching up. Okay, and when you start the climb further, you will come to this point. At this position is the first problem for those who try to do power loop first time in your life. The first uncertain moment is where you see only the sky, and you have no reference, of how fast you are pitching up or how far you have added throttle. So you are not going to be so sure that you not have any reference that it is right. Okay, and at this position you need to create a backward momentum. You need to pull the quad back in order to finish the first half of the loop here. Okay, in order to overcome the uncertain moment. Well, in this example there is no visual reference, but how about time reference? Well, the time reference here you can count in your head, or just guess by your feeling. The last time you see the skyline at the right side to the time that you see the skyline on the left side. This is the timing that you can count in your head. You can just notice your feeling, how long it takes. For some people it might take forever. Okay, you just have to time it and you correct it for the next trial. Okay, all I want to say is that there is a time reference here. At this position there is a time reference. Okay, and you can overcome that uncertainty by practice it. Okay, when you comes to the point where you are doing half power loop. Well, here is another uncertain moment because you have no reference. Again, you see only the sky still, and you are not sure when to stop the thrust, when to reduce the thrust, and how fast or how slow you need to pitch up more. Okay, and you don't know how high you are right at this position because you don't see any reference to the ground. You don't know how high you are, and at this point, in order to complete the loop, you need to utilize the backward momentum that you create at this point. So, well, if you have created the desired momentum, you just reduce the thrust here and go along with the momentum you created and let the gravity pull you down to this position. At this position, you can see many more things and you can have many references in order to exit. You see the ground, so you know how high you are. You see the fence and the gap you want to exit, so you can aim, and you can start adding throttle. You know when to add throttle in order to arrest the descent rate and to align yourself to the gap in order to exit. But most important thing for learning new trick is to know when to abort. Well, for this concept of aborting, I would like to mention about the real pilot concept of missed approach point here. Well, for this picture, there's a pilot with a Cessna airplane here, and the runway is here, and in order to land, he should go along the final approach glide path, which is this line connected with this green line here, and land. Well, it's not that easy like that because we have many points for safety, and here's the minimum descent altitude. Well, when he descends along the glide path to this altitude, he has to decide firstly if he see any reference on the ground of the runway, if he see any approach line or the runway or the runway lighting, he can descend lower than this altitude and go along the glide path and continue to land and keep visual to the runway at all times. But at this point, if he cannot see any reference of the runway, he cannot go below this altitude. The pilot has to maintain the altitude up until this position, which we call the missed approach point. At this point is the final point that he has to decide whether he can visually contact the runway or not. If he cannot contact the runway, let's say he cannot see the runway or approach line or runway lighting at this point, he cannot continue the approach. He cannot continue trying to land. This is the last point he can try to land. At this point, if he cannot see any reference on the ground of the runway, he have to miss approach, which is to abandon the landing and go circling around the airport or somewhere else and wait for the weather to become better, or wait for the runway is clear for landing, or other reason, and try another approach. Okay, this is the concept of missed approach, and I apply that concept with the trick I do, the FPV trick I do. So when I abort, I'm considering the uncertain moment as my as the points where I think whether to abort or not, because at this position sometimes I don't know what I am doing, and sometimes I don't know what is going on, so I decide to abort at this uncertain moment. And the faster you abort, the safer you are. If you abort at this first uncertain moment, it's safer than aborting at the second uncertain moment, because at this position your attitude and everything is safer, it's easier to correct. But at this position you are facing more or less upside down. If you abort, you have to correct it, flip over, like 180-degree flip over. It is harder to abort. Well, you have to think about where you should abort when you don't know what you are doing. And for me, it's the uncertain point that I'm deciding whether to continue or abort. Okay, for uncertain moment, usually it comes with a mistake, because when we are learning new trick, we don't know exactly what we should do, and we usually make mistakes. For any mistakes, we have to correct it. So if we correct it in time, then we can continue the trick we're trying to do. But if we cannot correct it in time, and the path of the quad or the attitude of the quad become unacceptable, then we have to abort. Okay, you have to think about it. But however, for making mistakes, you can choose to have a safer mistake. For this example, when I am doing power loop, the first time I do power loop, I choose to go for a safer option, which is to go higher, and I increase pitch very little, because I don't know how fast I have to pitch up. So I gradually pitch up. I pitch up too late, and the quad goes so high that it's not going to be power loop anymore. But at this position, I have plenty of room and altitude to correct my mistake. I can correct the power loop, or I can abort. There's so much time to do here. Okay, this is safer mistake. Another example is a bad mistake, which is, I call it risky mistake. It's just like someone who want to accomplish it so fast. He want to accomplish it right away. The first time he try, he want to do a perfect power loop, just like that, and he just stubborn in doing it. So he want to tight. He may increase pitch up too fast, and he tightening the power loop too much, that he bring his quad to this point which too tight, and at this point he has less room to correct it. The altitude is so low. He also has less room to abort. If he want to abort here, it might be too late to abort, and finally it will crash. Okay, this is more or less the reason why people are crashing while trying to learning new trick. Okay, well, next phase is the exit phase. Sometimes exit is so easy. If you just finish the power loop and go straight ahead and cruising, it's very easy. But if the exit is connected with another trick, it also concerning reference point, uncertain moment, and correction and abort decision. Well, at this position here, the quad is here. What's going on is you have arrested the rate of descent, and you have keep the path, the right path. Well, you have many reference, you have a gap of the fence, but pretty risky. So you might consider abort at this position as well, because you have to pass through the gap. If you're not sure that you can pass through the gap or not, it's safer to abort here. Okay, and the exit also. If you just finishing up with a straight ahead exit, it's very easy. Just enjoy a successful power loop. But if you are preparing for the next move, like a next trick, you have to consider whether the exit attitude, speed, and momentum is right for the next trick or not, and it will become trickier to make flow. Just like that, the exit becomes an entry for another trick. Okay, just like if you want to do an inverted yaw spin here, right after you do the power loop here, it will become a hard work to do here. Okay, for the exit, just that. Okay, that's all for the concept. I thank you for listening. I really appreciate your time and hope that you have something beneficial for your learning FPV Freestyle trick. I hope you can accomplish any trick you want with less crash and less time. If you benefit from my tutorial, I would like to see your video that how you learn it. Is it useful? Am I saying it wrong at any point or not? Okay. If you want to share this video to other people, if you want to use video in your work, please give me some credit. Okay. Maybe I have more subscribers. That will be very thankful. And that's all for this video. And see you next time. Be safe.